Hi, it's Neil here from Audiotent. It's been a while since my last tutorial, but I'm back. As you might be aware, I'm a big fan of modular synthesizers. The depth of sound that they offer and the flexibility is something to behold. During the past few months, I've been spending a lot of time with the Erica Synths Techno System. It's basically a Eurorack drum machine, sequencer, sampler, and synth voice. Pretty much all you need to make a solid foundation for a track or to perform live. I thought it might be useful if I made a quick video covering these patching tips and tricks that I've come across whilst using the Techno System. Some of these techniques can also be applied to other modular synthesizers or in your DAW. First of all, let's hear some of the patches we're going to create, and then let's get to it. Okay, so for the first one, I'm going to show you a cool feature that's hidden inside the drum sequencer, which is called Randomise CV. It's not just any random CV generator like a random LFO or white noise that is constantly moving and evolving. It actually allows you to set which parameter you want to randomize and at what probability percentage. For example, if I head over to the CV track page, then hold Shift and press Shuffle, I come into the main Randomise CV window. From here, I now have 4 options, each with its own probability amount: 0, 25, 50, 75 and 100%. Note, this is the CV value that will be sent to the oscillator, telling it what pitch to play via its 1 volt per octave input. Octave. This will denote the octave of the note, telling the 1 volt per octave input of the oscillator which octave to play in. Step is the trigger on or off from the gate output for each of the 16 steps. This is what triggers your VCA or filter envelope, essentially creating the rhythmic pattern to your sequence. The final parameter is length, which controls the length of time that the gate is open for. This is more noticeable when you have fewer steps active and want to hold certain notes for longer. Once you set the probability amount you would like to change with these encoders, you hit bank to randomize. You can then keep pressing bank until you find something you like. Once you have a step pattern you like, but you're not feeling the actual melody, you can try randomizing just the note and octave values. You can always go back to the main CV page and further manually edit the note, octave, step or length to get exactly what you want. As you can see, it's a quick and powerful way of coming up with those sequenced riffs and patterns. This patch example explores the use of audio rate triggers. So what is an audio rate trigger? Well, let me do my best to explain in the easiest possible way. First of all, we need to know the difference between a trigger and a gate. They are fairly similar, but they do have their differences. A trigger is a very short, narrow pulse that is literally on and then quickly back off again. Very useful for triggering drums or pinging a resonant filter. Whereas a gate is either on or off. The simplest way to think of a gate is when you press a note on your keyboard. That C note is on whilst you hold down the key and it's off when you let go. So back to using audio rate triggers in a patch. The rate at which you trigger a snare or hi-hat sample is fairly low, even at 16th note steps. However, if we trigger that same sample at audio rate, meaning a pulse wave going on and off at 20 cycles a second or more, something very interesting starts to happen. Let me demonstrate this with the use of an LFO that goes up into audio rate. Now where this starts getting really interesting is when you take a square wave out of an oscillator that is already being sent a 1 volt per octave sequence, and you use that as your audio rate trigger. I will use the same CV sequence from the previous patch, and let's have a listen what we can get out of this now. You will get a different timbre from the snare, tom or cymbals. Let's patch in the snare and listen to the difference. Let's just send that into the delay and reverb of the dual effects and see what we can get. I absolutely love that. It creates this sort of harmonic layer to your sequence. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like me to show you how to do something very similar within Ableton Live. Right, let's get on to the next one. Patch number 3 is a simple and effective way to play chords in Eurorack using the sample drum module. We can do this by loading in a chord stab loop and slicing just one note or just the first note from a sample. Let me load up a loop from our chord stab pack called Orb and show you an example. Patch number 4 is creative use of effects on your kick drum. Now, reverb on a kick drum has been covered many times inside a DAW, but I thought it would be useful to show how to set this up inside the Techno System. First, I will patch an auxiliary send and return for the reverb effects. This will give me a lot of control over the dry and wet signals, just like you would inside a DAW. So channel 3 here is my dry kick drum, and channel 4 here is the wet amount of the reverb. This will give me full control over the amount of this effect. I know you can have a dry wet here, but what we're going to do is we're going to use an LFO to adjust the amount of the dry and wet of this effect. So having the send effect on a mixer channel gives us full control over the amplitude of that effect. First of all, I need to send a clock signal out of the drum sequencer and into the LFO sync input. This is to make sure our LFO is bang on time with the downbeat of the kick drum. The final patch cable is the LFO out to the CV input of the reverb effect. What we need to do next is tell this CV input to adjust the dry wet. We do that by holding this little button down. It brings up a little sub menu, and this last one is dry wet. Click save. This will help duck the reverb on the downbeat. Then it's all about working in the correct settings. which can take a bit of tweaking. Okay, we're on to the final patch, which is using a kick drum and crushed delay distortion as a bass line. I have the sample drum providing the kick from our Magma sample library, and then I have the CV and gate outs from the drum sequencer, sending the pitch and triggers to the kick drum module. The kick drum output is sent to the dual effects module, set in the Ripper algorithm. The effect is a crushed and distorted short delay. Let's take a listen now. This parameter 1 control is very interesting. It reminds me of a technique used with guitar pedals, where you can starve the distortion of voltage. It's an old school technique where you intentionally used an old 9-volt battery to power the pedal. This starved the circuit and allowed the pedal to break up in a very pleasing way. Let me adjust this parameter again and you can hear what I mean. Okay, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching the 5 patching techniques for the Erica Synths Techno System. If you'd like to see more, let me know in the comments below, and I'll catch you again soon.